Welcome to the Pawnception. We are transporting you today to San Francisco, 1974, a time when chess culture in America was buzzing with electricity. The air was thick. The room was, probably clouded with cigarette smoke, and the tension over the board was purely intensely human. Just 2 years earlier, the world had witnessed the cultural earthquake of the World Chess Championship, 1972, where Bobby Fischer defeated Boris Spassky. Chess was suddenly cool. Clubs were full. Tournaments were fierce, and young players were experimenting boldly with openings and tactics. Amid that atmosphere came a fascinating battle between two ambitious competitors, Ruben Escutin Catig, playing with the white pieces, and Michael Mills commanding black. This game begins as a standard Sicilian battle. It ends as something far more dramatic, a tactical storm that explodes into a brilliant attacking finish. E4, white claims the center immediately. The pawn steps forward like a flag planted in new territory. Black answers with the Sicilian Defense. C5 is the most combative reply to E4. Instead of symmetry, black chooses imbalance, an invitation to chaos and creativity. White develops naturally with NF3, eyeing the center and preparing to strike. Black mirrors development with NC6 and keeps options flexible. White cracks open the center immediately by moving pawn on D4. The Sicilian thrives on open lines and tactical possibilities. Black accepts the challenge and captures. White recaptures with the knight on D4, bringing a piece into the center. G6. Now the shape of black's plan becomes clear. This will be a dragon-style fianchetto, preparing to place the bishop on G7, where it will stare down the long diagonal like a sniper rifle. NC3. White reinforces the center. The black bishop arrives in G7 like a silent predator on the diagonal. BE3. White calmly develops, connecting ideas for long-term pressure. NF6. Black increases pressure on the E4 pawn. BE2. A flexible move. White prepares the castle and keeps the structure solid. Black castles into safety, but in Sicilian positions, safety is always a temporary illusion. White plays QD2, connects rooks and hints at king's side ambitions. And suddenly, boom, black strikes the center with D5. This is the kind of move that separates passive defenders from active fighters. Instead of sitting back, black challenges the entire structure. White captures the knight on C6, damaging black's pawn structure. Black recaptures, accepting double pawns but gaining a powerful central pawn chain. In chess, structural damage can sometimes be the price of dynamic energy. Catig advances aggressively by moving pawn on E5, kicking the knight. Mills jumps forward with the knight, aiming directly at white bishop on E3. The tension begins to rise. He is not rushing to challenge the center directly with pawns. Instead, he is pointing that bishop down the longest diagonal on the board. This is how black is going directly at white queen's side ambitions. That's the hallmark of this specific Sicilian setup. It's a coiled spring approach. White removes the knight immediately with bishop. Black recaptures, and now the black bishop becomes a powerful attacking piece. Catig plays H3 and questions the black bishop. The black's bishop retreats to F5 while maintaining pressure. Now things get wild. White launches one more pawn forward on the king's side. The G4 move is pushing the bishop back and grabbing space, but every pawn move around the king also opens doors, sometimes doors you later regret opening. The black's bishop retreats to B6, but it stays active. White centralizes the queen. From here it supports attacks and watches multiple diagonals. F6, black strikes back at the pawn chain. This is classic Sicilian logic: undermine the center, open lines, create targets. With F4, white reinforces the structure and prepares for the king's side aggression. Black calmly develops the queen on C7, eyeing the E5 pawn. The board now feels like a room full of gasoline fumes. One spark could ignite everything. White captures on F6. Black recaptures with the bishop. Now black's pieces are pointing directly toward the white king. White places the queen aggressively on C5 in black's territory. But chess punishes overextension. Check. The bishop slices across the board like lightning. Suddenly, the white king is exposed. That check is not just a move, it's the echo of white move 13 G4. The bishop lands precisely on a square that only became accessible because of white earlier pawn push. It's like setting a trap for yourself and only realizing it when you step into it 5 moves later. In chess, some mistakes don't explode immediately. They wait, they mature, they become inevitable. White king plays K2, steps towards the center. This is rarely comfortable territory for a king. BC8, black repositions. preparing deeper tactical operations. White grabs a pawn with knight and attacks. Bold, very bold. But black answers immediately with a devastating check. The bishop enters the game with force. Catig plays c4 and blocks the black's check. Mills aligns queen and bishop against the king. The attack begins to gather momentum. White tries to reorganize the defense with the knight move on b4. Black blasts open the center. This e5 move is the moment when the board erupts. White knight captures the bishop on a6, but black's attack doesn't slow. Another pawn breaks through on f4. Lines toward the king open wider. White plays bd4 and tries to consolidate. A black plays re8 plus. Rook enters with check. Now every black piece participates in the attack. kf3, the white king starts running. re3 plus, a rook sacrifice idea appears. Black's pieces are flooding. kg2, white escapes for the moment. f3 plus, another check. Black continues the hunt. kf1, white tries to regroup. rfe8, now both black rooks dominate the open files. The attack is relentless. The net tightens. kg1, white retreats again. The bishop appears like a shadow near the king on g3. Checkmate patterns begin forming. f1, white desperately defends. e1, black doubles down on the attack. Every move tightens the net. pc3, white tries one last defensive resource, but black has already calculated the ending. qxp2, and that's it. White resigns. Black wins. This game is a miniature lesson in attacking chess. Black accepted structural weaknesses early, doubled pawns, open lines, but transformed them into dynamic energy. Once the center opened, the black pieces flowed toward the king like water through a broken dam. In this game, Mills willingly gave up his positional safety to step into the fire. He abandoned the textbook rules to create something dynamic and brilliant. He took the risk. In our own lives, in our own careers, in strategic decision-making, how often do we cling to safe positions? How often do we make the logical, incremental move to protect what we have, like grabbing a pawn or maintaining a solid structure, while completely missing out on the brilliant, game-winning combinations that require us to take a calculated risk and step into the unknown? A powerful question, something to think about next time you are facing a complicated board of your own. While neither Ruben, Escutin, Catig nor Michael Mills became global superstars, this game remains a beautiful example of mid-level tournament brilliance where creativity and courage meet over the board. Every one of those games carries a story, and sometimes, like this one, that story ends with the king running across the board while an army closes in from every direction. That's the strange magic of chess, a quiet board, then suddenly a hurricane made of rooks, bishops, and ideas. Chess history isn't a museum with a few paintings on the wall. It's a warehouse with millions of canvases and only a few get spotlight. This game is one of the ones still in the warehouse. If this game stirred something in you that quiet or only chess can bring, then stay with us. Because here, we don't just replay move, we relive moments where genius dared to dream. Subscribe and step into a world where every game tells a story and every move has a heartbeat.